Greetings everybody around the world. It's time once again for Ancient Aliens Radio. This is the dedicated radio show for the cast of Ancient Aliens. Here we interview authors and researchers as an ongoing investigation into the ancient alien theory. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or subscribe to the YouTube channel Ancient Aliens Radio. We're going to be talking to Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. A little bit about Michael before I bring him on, and Michael is a super interesting guy, really is. He's got a whole range of diverse interests. A little bit about Michael. He's originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and moved to New York in 1980. Lived there for 27 years and working as a professional actor there before moving to Asheville with his family. Michael is an ordained interfaith minister, and he's received his BA degree in letters from the College of New Rochelle. He's graduated with cum laude. He received his master's in divinity degree from the Union Theological Seminary in New York City, class of 2000. And he served as a staff chaplain at Lenox Hill Hospital, Beth Israel Cancer Center, Methodist Hospital, and New York Hospital Queens while residing in New York City. He's also famed for the Ancient Aliens TV show, and Michael's wrote two wonderful books. He's wrote Alien Scriptures and Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, and he's also recently just published A New World If You Can Take It, God, Extraterrestrials, and the Evolution of Human Consciousness. Of course, Michael is serving as a Unitarian Universalist interfaith minister, and we're going to get a little bit into that today with Michael just as a premise for the show. So without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey Jay. Happy New Year to you. It's good to be here again.
Oh, great to talk to you again, Michael. Great to see you too. It's wonderful. And, I wanted to just get into some of your background as your interfaith minister, Michael.
Sure.
It's pertinent to what we're going to talk about anyway. And I want to do that because it's, you do Reiki as well, Michael, and I know you do that to heal people. You've even been recognized by Clinton for your efforts as well. So, you've got such a wonderful, interesting biography. Great to have people like that on the show, Michael. But tell us a little bit about your faith. It's like I say again, it's pertinent to what we're going to talk about today.
Well, I'm pretty eclectic as far as my faith goes, and by that I mean I draw on various traditions because I believe that all of them underneath pretty much say the same thing. I was raised as a Baptist. And, I'm giving you a truncated version here. And as I started studying and researching and peeling the onion about who I am and who I wanted to be, I found that faith perspective did not gel with who I was and who I wanted to be. And so I started going into Eastern philosophy, studying that, yoga, metaphysics, if you will, Unitarianism. And so, all of these things make me who I am today. Unitarianism began in Europe, in Transylvania, and basically we're part of the Protestant Reformation, but Unitarians believe in one God, one creator, call it what you will. Thus, Unitarian. So that means we don't believe in a Trinity. Mm-hmm. We find the Trinity to be a very, strange mathematical formula, if you will.
Dogmatic, perhaps.
Well, yes, we could say that. But for instance, I'll give you an example. If Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven is within all of us, and I believe that. So let's use Jesus in Gethsemane. Mm-hmm. He's praying to God before his arrest. Is he praying to himself? Because if he's God, then he's praying to himself to let this cup pass from him. And so it just gets to be a little tricky. And so, we just said that, okay, there's one God and that's it. Jesus has the kingdom of heaven within him, as do you, as do I, as do everyone else. We can use whatever words we want. And we also look at Jesus as an example, not the exception. That the things Jesus can do, being a highly developed spiritual consciousness, we can do too. At least at some time. And universalism believes that God is love. So love does not condemn you to hell because you don't believe what they believe. Love is love. Love does not seek vengeance. Love does not seek controversy. Love does not separate. Love is about unity. And so the two denominations merged in 1961. And that's the truncated version. So I belong to the Unitarian Universalist denomination. We're very progressive. We have atheists in my congregation. We have Christians. We have people who don't know and don't care. We have Jewish people. We have people who are saying, I want to find my own spiritual path. I want to be supported. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be told I'm going to burn in hell or that my children are born in sin. And so they seek out a more free thinking denomination.
I get the impression from what I hadn't been aware, to be honest with you, there's so many Christian denominations and religious denominations. It's hard to know exactly. I wasn't aware of the Unitarian denomination until I met you, Michael, and researched it. And, you know, from what I read of it, it's very, very open. It's very philosophical. It's very well rounded, and it's such a wonderful grounded faith, Michael. I mean, I'm attracted to it, to be honest with you. I'm attracted to it because I don't see the dogma there. I don't see the dogma that other faiths have, Michael.
No, it's not there. It's not there, James. Now, we have principles
sure.
that we want people to live by, and you know, we respect the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We respect the earth and all earth-centered traditions. I mean, it's hard not to agree with a lot of the things we're proposing. Now, there are some people who say, well, I can be a Christian, I can be a Muslim, I can be a Jewish person and adhere to all that. And we say yes. The big difference is we say that your spiritual journey is unique to you. There's no priest, rabbi, imam, minister, etc., that's going to tell you what you need to believe. And that basically we're not so much concerned about what you believe, but how you live your life.
Sure.
That's the greatest testament. I'll know what you believe by how you treat me, by how you treat the earth. Sure. That's where we're coming from.
Sure. You know, Michael, I was watching the Ancient Aliens, and, you know, there's all sorts of people on there. There's PhD scientists, there's alternative historians, there's ministers like yourself, and, you know, there's such a wonderful eclectic mix of people on the show. Some people I don't agree with. Some of the actual factual information I actually don't agree with. Some of it I do, and some of it I think it should be there. Yes. I mean, and that's the thing about it.
I'm the same way, James, and I'm one of the guests.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing that stood out for me the most is that there's ministers on the show talking about biblical scriptures, about what we're going to talk about, ancient aliens, or aliens in scriptures, or aliens today for that matter. But the point is, Michael, you know, from having you on the show, you're a very learned guy, and this is what I wanted to do justice at the start of the show, to talk about your faith. You know, you have a master's in divinity, you have you have to, being a minister, yes? So, you know, this is coming.
Yes, I'm seminary trained. I went to one of the top seminaries in the country. Sure. I went to Union Theological Seminary.
And this is why I want to talk to you today, Michael. These are the people that I want to talk to about this topic, this subject matter. You know, the first book, Michael, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. If that wasn't a bombshell of a title of a book, Michael, you know, let's start with that one, because it is a monster book. It's a wonderful book, Michael. It's well done, it's well rounded, and it's well researched. I mean, it is a bombshell, Michael. This really is a bombshell. But I think the time is right for this, and I think maybe it's somebody like yourself from your specific faith, you know, that isn't, and not to pick on another faith like Catholic or something like that, but there's a lot of dogma with other faiths, and I think you have this open philosophy to take on the subject matter, Michael. Would that be fair to say?
Well, yes, that would be very fair to say. As a matter of fact, my good friend and colleague Barry Downing said the exact same thing. He says, Michael, a Unitarian could write that book. Me, as a Presbyterian minister, I could not. And yes, I think timing is everything. We are seeing disclosure all around us. Yes, some people are waiting for the United States government to say, yes, you guys were right. There's the extraterrestrials, but we can't wait for that. We watch, if you look at, military people, airline pilots, we're talking contactees, astronauts, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, for an example. Mm-hmm. They're telling us that extraterrestrials have visited this planet and that they are still involved in the evolution of this planet, and that we need to grow up and to get into the galactic neighborhood, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the timing is everything. This is crucial. We cannot wait for the United States to tell us that, guess what, these are not weather balloons. And so I find that out of my 2 books, now to be fair, the second book just came out in October, so I got to get some steam going behind it. But people are fascinated with religion and UFOs.
Sure. And that's the thing, Michael. That was my next question. I mean, do you find that more people are coming to ministers or your faith or just maybe to talk about this because they're finding answers in the religious scriptures?
Yes, I think that, human evolution is slow, sometimes glacial, but it does occur. When I first started talking about this 15, 20 years ago, I was in the closet. I would tell people about my research, sure, but not about my own contact experiences. But what a difference 20 years makes. And I remember fundamentalist Christians would not even admit, they would not even entertain the thought that we were having contact. Now they do. Now, people like Mr. L.A. Marzulli and others, they are saying that, yes, we are being visited. The only difference is what they're saying is, yes, we're being visited, but they're all fallen angels. They're all of the devil. They're all evil. I don't agree with that. But at least now we're having the conversation. We have the Pope. We have the Vatican speculating. Sure. Would we baptize an extraterrestrial, or extraterrestrial life does not conflict with Scripture. And so we're living at in an exciting time. We have 48 to 50% of the American people are saying that they believe in life on other planets. 50% of the American people are saying that, we believe that the government is not telling us everything they know about life on other planets. That's just here in America. Hmm. The other, New Zealand, Brazil, London, the UK, Mexico, all of these countries, France, all these countries are releasing not all of their documents, but they're releasing information, data to the public saying, guess what, folks? We're not the highest thing on the food chain. It's an exciting time to be alive.
I definitely think so, Michael. And what I loved about your latest book, A New World If You Can Take It, I love the title. You talk about this in a subjective experience to yourself, or you give the subjective narrative for people reading the book, because this is a subjective issue. I mean, what does it all mean to us? What does it all mean to everybody, our brothers or sisters? I mean, right here, right now. Yes, people are attracted to this topic because they want to know about aliens, or they want to know about aliens in history, or ancient aliens for Pacific. And if that attracts them to some biblical resources, I understand that. And this is the attraction. But at the end of the day, what I like about A New World is it's talking about this from a subjective, viewpoint. Would that be fair to say, Michael?
It would be. I mean, listen, what I bring to the table is that I am a contactee. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have experiences to the present day, and I am a clergy person. And so, it's not like, well, this is speculation or what have you. Yes, we can interpret the Bible in many different ways. I'm not the only one experimenting with this and talking about it in this way. But as a contactee and a person who's was called to the clergy, I think I can bring a perspective, not the only perspective, mm-hmm. but a perspective that will help people who are trying to wrestle, who are trying to navigate, negotiate their faith and the possibility that we are not alone.
Sure. Michael, you talked a little bit about the Nephilim there. Let's get into some meat and potatoes here. Tell us where the Nephilim scriptures are, where they come up in the biblical sources. Who were the Nephilim? Just spell it out from your perspective, Michael.
Well, Zachariah Sitchin, who I've had the pleasure to meet many years before he had died, really delves into this. But the Nephilim are the sons of God. I'm using that term, and they were giants. We get but they're also named other things. Some people call them the Watchers, and they make their appearance in chapter 6 of Genesis, where it says, chapter 4, there were giants on the earth in those days, and also after that, for the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, and they became giants, who in the olden days were mighty men of renown. Now that is the introduction in Genesis about these angels, whom I call messengers. That's what angels mean in the Greek. They mean messengers. Now, if you want to go more into this, you go to the book of Enoch, which was at one time a much used book. Some people still use the book. Ethiopian Jews use it. I'm showing it here. It's well worth your wait if you want to buy this and to research more. And they talk about these beings called the Watchers. And Enoch is called the scribe of the Watchers. And so he talks about 200 angels, I call them star people, who came down to earth. And they did violate, obviously, a maxim that I guess you were not supposed to mingle with the natives, if you were. And they had children by these earth women. However, they taught us. Now, people just write them off as being evil, but they taught us how to make weapons, right? Swords, knives, shields, breastplates. In chapter 8 of the book of Enoch, they taught us how to observe the stars. They taught us astronomy. They taught us many things, and I don't think that it was necessarily bad. They taught us the use of stones and crystals and bracelets and ornaments. I don't think that's necessarily bad. What I feel, and we could argue it, is that the knowledge they gave us, we were not ready for. It's almost like now. We didn't have the spiritual maturity to deal with the technology. We see it now. We get technology and we make drones. We make weapons. We make bombs. And so we get this technology and we don't know how to use it. And so do we blame the extraterrestrials, or is it something in us? So I'm just saying that I don't think that we can paint the Nephilim or the Watchers as bad. You know, we like to do that. They're either good or bad. I mean, I'm glad that they taught us astronomy. I'm glad they told us the healing property of crystals and other stones. I'm glad they taught us astrology. The weapons, they could have been used for defensive purposes, but we use those weapons on the offensive to take people's resources, to conquer other lands. I'm not necessarily sure that they're all evil or bad.
I find the Book of Enoch incredibly fascinating. I was actually with Andrew Collins, as you know, fellow Ancient Aliens star. He's got a Book of Enoch from, I think, this 18th century or something, a couple 100-year-old version of it. And, you know, it's like, in the last 20 years, nobody ever heard of the Book of Enoch until recent times. And why was this thing omitted? And why was there perhaps other groups of people that were aware of this? I mean, was this omitted from the canonical list for any particular reason? Do we know why the omission was there? And why is it only popularized now, Michael?
Well, I feel that, and I think that from what I just told you, that's one of the reasons why. Yeah. That is controversial, that we're talking about other beings and deities. And so that would be a problem for clergy to explain. Mm. The other thing I would say is that, no, it's always been, I mean, like I said, the Ethiopian Christians, they still use this book. And for several hundred years, the Book of Enoch was still revered and still used. It did not make it into the canon for religious and political purposes. But here we are in the 21st century revisiting this knowledge, revisiting these stories, and to see how they pertain to us today. I think it's invaluable. And if anyone is serious about studying the scriptures and the Judeo-Christian scriptures and ufology, then the Book of Enoch is something that you want to have in your library.
And the book is broken into 5 parts, is that correct?
I'm looking at it now. There's several chapters into it. But I guess it depends, believe it or not, it depends on what translation you get. Oh, I mean, there's the introduction, and there's just chapters. There are, there are well over 50 chapters in this book, maybe more.
Wow.
So I don't know how it's broken down into 5 parts, but the version I have here is just as if you were reading a Bible. Wow. It's just broken down into chapters.
But there is a whole section devoted to the Watchers, and there's a whole section devoted to astronomy.
Oh, no question. No question. There's a whole section devoted. No, they give you the names of some of these so-called fallen angels. Now, there's another book here called the Apocryphal Old Testament, where they definitely call the Watchers, and it's called the Book of Jubilees. And they talk about the Watchers and their relationship to Adam and Eve. And they go into much more in-depth discussion of the Genesis story. And they are called the Watchers in this book as well. It's called the Book of Jubilees in the Apocryphal Old Testament.
Wow. Where does the Dead Sea Scrolls fit into all this? Does the Dead Sea Scrolls back up anything to do with the Enochian Bible?
I would say yes. But the Dead Sea Scrolls, again, depending on your translation, talk about the teacher of righteousness, whom to this day we don't know who that is. Some people speculate that it's Jesus, but it's definitely not clear. But there are sections of the Dead Sea Scrolls that lend themselves to extraterrestrial interpretation.
Sure. I got to mention Ezekiel's wheel. Tell us about Ezekiel, who Ezekiel was, from what we know from the scriptures, and what Ezekiel's wheel, in your opinion, is. A lot of people say it was a UFO. A lot of people say something else. It was an engineering artifact. You know, it's bizarre. This is a bizarre story from the scriptures.
Well, there's a wonderful book out. It's been out for quite some time by Joseph M. Bloomrich. You can Google his name. He was a NASA engineer, a NASA scientist, and he wrote a book called The Spaceships of Ezekiel. And what he did was he took the metrics that Ezekiel described in the Old Testament, in the Torah, and he designed a spaceship. It's under copyright. You can Google The Spaceships of Ezekiel. And basically what we're saying here, using a 20th, 21st century lens, is that Ezekiel is describing the landing of a spacecraft. And he describes the commander of the ship, whom he refers to as the Lord. And he talks about being taken up into the craft. I mean, it's a fascinating account. Obviously, we don't have time to get into all of it here, but it's clearly right there in the Bible.
Wow.
And again, if you want to talk about, or at least get more information on. It's called Joseph Bloomrich wrote it, and it's called The Spaceships of Ezekiel.
Fascinating.
Yes, I'm looking, my goodness. Well, the beginning of the book of Ezekiel, he goes right into it. He talks about his experience going right into, he talks about, in the 30th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, when I was in the community of exiles by Shabar Canal, the heavens opened and I saw a vision of God. And from there on, he describes what he saw. And in other words, he's using the language of his day, the vernacular of his day, and it looks like he's describing the landing of a spacecraft.
This is incredible, Michael. Michael, I want to focus a little bit on your contactee experience today. I'll come back to the scriptures in a moment. There's so much stuff in the scriptures I want to get to as well. Tell us a little bit about your contactee experience, Michael, because this is also pertinent to the whole genre that we're talking about.
Well, my first contactee experience, where I actually saw it being in my room, and they go on to the present day, was December 28, 1989. I talk about it in my book, Alien Scriptures. I was in on the Yucatan Peninsula with my girlfriend at the time, who became my first wife. We went to Cancun, and we decided to go to the Yucatan to see the pyramids at Chichén Itzá and Tulum. Fantastic experience, by the way. Mm-hmm. On the way back, when we got back to New York, I had been invited to a party, and I didn't want to go, but I wanted to go. You know, I wanted to show off my tan. I just come back from 85, 90 degrees. It was freezing in New York. And so we got home and unpacked, and I caught the subway down to the party. It was in the Times Square area. Stayed for about an hour and a half. I didn't have any adult beverages. I had some potato salad, some deviled eggs, those kind of things. And I went back home. During the middle of the night, even to this day, I don't know why I got up to go to the bathroom, or did I feel a presence in the room. But when I woke up and I sat up in my bed, and my room was filled with this white blue light. And there was a being on the edge of my bed staring at me, chalk colored, had this aura, this light around her, and had a jumpsuit, a tight fitting it looked like aluminum foil, like Reynolds wrap. Mm-hmm. It was a suit. And they had the big bulbous pear-shaped head and these black almond-shaped eyes. Mm-hmm. I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
Sure.
And what I did was I pulled the covers up over my head. I mean, I'm not ashamed. I was scared.
Yeah.
When I did that, I heard the sound of whoosh, and I felt the temperature change as if all of a sudden my bed was outside. When I pulled the covers down, no one was there.
Wow.
And this went on about every full moon and new moon for about 8 months, a year. And sometimes they would come and paralyze me. I was not asleep. It was not sleep paralysis. Mm-hmm. They were flesh and blood people. Mm-hmm. And they would show me pictures in my mind. So it was like telepathy.
Sure.
And that went on. And then I met another race of people who were reptilian. That happened twice. Walked right through my bedroom on the 15th floor of the Excelsior Hotel, 45 West 81st Street. And they just walked through my wall and left the same way. Telepathy, don't be afraid. They just looked at me, I looked at them. They went on. Then there were several years where I didn't have any really contacts, maybe in dreams, but not the type of when you get up and there's someone in your room.
Sure.
July 4th, 2013, I had a blood clot. I was going through some things in my life, no history of blood clots. It was a rainy night. All the fireworks celebrations were canceled. I'm lying on my stomach in my bed trying to get to sleep. Now, sometimes when they come, it gets very, very quiet. Very quiet. And the energy in the room, the air seems thicker. I can't put it into words. Anyway, I turn around. There's a gentleman there, extremely tall. I'm 6'1". I'm lying down. Mm-hmm. With a cowl. I call it a hoodie, but it's one of those things that monks used to wear, back in the day, the Crusades, with a rope belt and hood on. Very, very pale skin. What I could see, a little, looked like light hair, maybe blonde. Very light eyes. He holds his hand out. A green light comes out of his hand. It hits me in my stomach. I don't feel any pain. And then he just dissolves. Now, my blood clot, my leg was as big as LeBron James. I mean, I'm a very thin man.
Yeah.
And so I didn't take a picture of it. I didn't think of doing that. I wrote it in my journal. I called my wife and my daughter. They know about my experiences. Mm-hmm. The next morning, when I get up, it takes me a while to go to sleep because every time they come, I have so much energy.
Sure.
My leg was back to normal.
Wow.
So it was a healing. So I've seen the reptilians. I've seen, I guess we could call them Nordic or what, they were humanoid. They look like human beings. Mm-hmm. And I've seen, we could call them grays. They were chalk colored to me, but so I've seen 3 species. And because of that, before the Nordic, around the time of the reptilian, when I had my contacts, I went right to the Bible. Remember, I'm a clergy person. I'm more into the spirituality. I could care less about the nuts and bolts, propulsion systems. How do they fly? I don't care about that.
Sure.
I care about the spiritual transformation that can occur, may not always occur, once you've had contact with someone from another civilization.
Wow. Wow, that leads my next question. You're obviously a philosophical guy if you've done a master's in divinity, but and from a theological perspective, and you just led me into that with the spirituality. I mean, what does it all mean to you, Michael? I mean, do you think the contact has happened for a very specific reason or a number of reasons? Have they told you? Have you been shown? Have you seen? Do you think it's guided you in certain ways?
First of all, it's guided me. Now, they showed me past lives, which I've been a clergy person in other lives. I've been a monk. I've been a priest. This is what I do. And I'm doing it now on a different level in this lifetime. That's number one. Number two is that I've been told that these beings, I'm not saying all beings, they're saying, we're not here to take over your planet. We're not here to take over anything. We're here to help humanity go to the next phase of evolution. But you are too fearful. You are too violent. You fight too much. Now, I'm not saying anything that anyone else hasn't said. George Adamski, any other contactees. Mm-hmm. When we started splitting the atom, that got people's attention. And so for us to grow, for us to evolve, we've got to be less warlike. We've got to stop polluting our planet. We've got to stop this racism, this prejudice, they don't look at race or religion the same way we do. To them, our religions are primitive because we look at creation as another human being. It's just like God is a human being, but just a little more powerful. And we create gods in our image.
Yeah.
So God is Santa Claus. If you're naughty, you go to hell. If you're nice, we reward you. They're like, that's not what it's about.
Sure.
That's not what it's about at all.
Sure.
It's about following universal laws. You reap what you sow. What you put out, you come back. It's quantum physics. What you focus on, you create. So, do you want to create a world of harmony? Because we can do that, but we focus on the things we don't want. In other words, if you need money, you don't want to focus on being broke.
Sure.
You focus on, what can I do to make more money?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But instead of focusing on illness, we want to focus on health. So we've got to learn to see how powerful we are. And we are part of all that is. It is within us as well as outside of us. And our religions have taught us, which is not what they wanted, our religions have taught us that everything is external. Everything is outside. But if I can use the phrase, the kingdom of heaven, or of righteousness, of truth, whatever you want to use, is here. It's right inside. We are part of it. We're already swimming in it.
Sure.
But we use it to separate. You're saved, I'm not. You're Tea Party, I'm not. You're black, I'm not. You're gay, I'm not. We use it to separate.
Sure.
And if we don't watch it, we're going to destroy ourselves and this planet. But the earth doesn't need us. The earth survives without us.
Whether we're there or not, yeah. True.
But we need the earth.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the different races. Do we know how many different races there are? What is it like out there, Michael, for these different races, or different entities, if you want to call it that? Is it like we see in Star Trek, where we have the Prime Directive out there, and we have all these, people networking together, all these different races of entities or beings, dimensional or interdimensional? Are they all networking together for a common goal, or
Well, I would surmise that there is kind of a prime directive, that we don't interfere in the affairs of other planets. But if those affairs threaten us, splitting the atom affects the galactic neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we got their attention. But there are many different races, just like there are many different humans.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are more benevolent. Some of them are more malevolent. They are evolving just as we evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are more evolved by thousands of years. Sure. We need to be able to join this federation in the sense of to grow up, mm-hmm. like Arthur C. Clarke's book, Childhood's End.
Sure.
We have to learn to be stewards of our planet, to put aside our petty differences, to share resources. And this takes time. This is one person at a time. All 8 billion, 9 billion people on the earth are not going to all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Mm-hmm. But we each have the power to do that if we choose to. If we choose to. Mm-hmm. We just saw the other day that 80 people control half the wealth on the planet.
Wow.
That's not what these space people are talking about.
Yeah. You mentioned something there that we create gods in our own image, Michael. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, because a very simple question then, if we do that, and let's say that's not right, or that is what it is at the moment. Let's say there is a God that's more universal. It's not in our own image. Who then is God? What is God? Maybe a description, or is it just a universal concept that we should try to even define?
I don't, first of all, the finite can never define the infinite. You just can't.
Yeah.
So anything that we say God is, we know God is more. If you want to use the word God. But God is not a anthropomorphic being. Mm. Well, with the Palladians, they would say that there's God, mm-hmm. who's a humanoid, mm-hmm. looking like us probably to a degree, but over top of that is something called creation.
Mm-hmm.
Creation is not anthropomorphic. Creation is an intelligence. Creation is an energy. Creation is something that we can tap into through prayer, through meditation, to observing nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel, as I posit in my books, that we have mistaken God for creation.
Mm-hmm.
Creation is not jealous.
Sure.
Creation is not a jealous God. Creation doesn't tell you to go into the promised land and kill men, women, and children to inhabit the land. Creation doesn't tell you, as in the book of Leviticus, how much to charge for slaves, how many shekels to charge for slaves. Creation is just energy, intelligence.
Sure.
And so I feel that we are mistaking the gods of the Old Testament
mm-hmm.
to be the ultimate gods. I can't worship a God who would tell you to kill men, women, and children and take their land. I just can't do that.
Sure, I agree. Michael, I know you addressed this kind of in a New World, if you take it. Where does the Catholic doctrine, the Catholic Church, stand on this? We know where they stand on God, but where do they stand on UFOs or aliens, if you want to call it that?
Well, I think what we hear from Pope Francis, and even before Pope Francis, that they're very open to the possibilities that we are not alone in the universe. The Catholic Church, I think, they want to be on the right end of this thing. I think this is why we're getting these messages. As a matter of fact, I posit in my book, A New World You Can Take It, that the Catholic Church will fare pretty well if there's ever a real public disclosure, because they make room for other deities. They're like Hinduism in a way. They make room for saints. They make room for God. There's God and there's Jesus and there's Saint this one and Saint that one. And to me, that's just like saying there are other angels, there are other life forms, there are other deities.
Do you think they're hedging
so any religion that has that, they'll be okay, because they'll have no problem with saying, there is God, but maybe these space beings are children of this God. They're angels, if you will. But Protestantism will maybe have a tougher time mm-hmm. because they just have God, Jesus, and that's it.
Sure. Do you think perhaps the Catholic Church then are hedging their bets for this transitional time?
Yes.
Probably the better political
way of saying it. They know that eventually, that when this hits the fan, they want to be up to date and on the right side of the thing.
Do you think that they know Disclosure's coming and they're putting their name in the hat? That's it. They're just saying, look, yes. Okay, let's get in and say, well, this is okay. This is old news. We knew this.
Yeah. Well, they've been saying this for quite a while. I mean, Monsignor Balladucci, the late Monsignor Balladucci, you can Google this man. He's talked about this. He's in Whitley Strieber's book Confirmation, mm-hmm. talking about this. He was a Vatican exorcist. Oh yeah, they know what's going on.
Sure. What has it been like for the Catholic Church in history then, in historical sense? Have they, how long do they know this, Michael? How long is this going on? Or at least maybe there's been, people associated with the church knowing this.
Yes, definitely. I mean, in the book I talk about, the Catholic Church and, there were people who had speculated about this, many, hundreds of years ago. And so, they, a Protestant and Catholic, don't get me wrong. I have a chapter in my book, called Catholic Christian Thinkers of the Past Who Speculated About Life on Other Planets. Or I subtitled it, E.T. Call Home. Giordano Bruno, who was actually persecuted for his beliefs, had speculated back in the 15th, 16th century that there was possible life on other planets. He was born in 1548,
Wow.
took Dominican orders, and he died in 1600 CE. He was killed because of his unorthodox beliefs. Origen, a Catholic thinker in the 2nd century, speculated about the possibility of life on other planets. So we have those Catholic thinkers. In the Protestant tradition, you have Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a Unitarian Universalist. Paul Tillich, who was a Protestant theologian, taught at Union Theological Seminary, talked about the possibility of life on other planets. So this is not new.
Yeah.
These were maverick thinkers and probably not taken as seriously as they could have been. Obviously, Bruno was taken very seriously. He was executed. But there's a long line of people thinking about the possibility of extraterrestrial life.
What about the Quran, Michael? I know you're quite a diverse for all scriptures. What do we find in the Quran? And maybe throw maybe an example out.
Well, in the Quran, when the Muslim prays, okay, the Muslim prays, and the prayer is that Allah is the Lord of the worlds. Okay,
Worlds
plural. So automatically, right off the bat, we see that Allah is Lord over more than one world. We have, this is a translation, from the Quran, Surah 68. And it says, and the unbelievers would almost trip Muhammad up with their eyes when they hear the message, and they say, surely he is possessed. But the Quran, is nothing less than a message to all worlds.
Wow.
In the surah number 38, chapter 38, 87, this is no less than a message about all the worlds. In the Quran, surah, chapter 26, verse 192, verily, this is the revelation from the Lord of the worlds. So, and we also talk about the jinns. The jinns are, I guess we could call them angels, or mischievous angels at least, but they are celestial beings. And they act like angels or what we would call extraterrestrials, but they're found all through the Quran. It says here in, 46, chapter 46, surah 29, say, it has been revealed to me that a company of jinns listened to the Quran, and they said, we have really heard a wonderful recital. So, again, religions of the book. By that I mean Islam, Judaism, Christianity. The foundations of these religions is in a book. They are talking about, we can interpret extraterrestrial life. They're talking about beings that have come down from above.
Seems to be woven as a fabric through all our religions and all our scriptures, Michael. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
I believe that. Even in the Hindu cosmology, when they talk about the Vimanas, the flying machines, and in the Mahabharata, in the Upanishads. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah. The Upanishads are incredibly interesting. I have a copy on the shelf there. I go to it sometimes and I just read it, and it's just incredibly fascinating.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you're talking about some of the oldest scriptures in the world when you talk about the Upanishads.
Wow. Michael, I want you to talk to me again. I know we spoke before about the Talmud of Emmanuel, but I just think this is incredibly interesting. The Talmud of Emmanuel is, you have it in the book, A New World, if you can take it. I just think this is incredible.
I do too. And I know that a lot of people are skeptical of Billy Meyer and, but no one's been able to really refute the pictures he can, it's like George Adamski. There are a lot of people who say this is incredible, but getting back to, there was a scroll found in, the Middle East. And it's the story of It's the Palladian story of the book of Matthew. And I'm giving you the truncated version here. And Billy Meyer was in touch with a Greek Orthodox minister named Rashid, who was a priest who was assassinated, allegedly because he knew too much about this. And it's a fascinating read, but it's a Palladian version of the book of Matthew, and Jesus is called Emmanuel in this text. He's not called Jesus. And it's very interesting because in the Bible, and I'm looking here so I can give you the correct, in the book of Isaiah, it says in chapter 7:14, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. In Matthew, verse 1:23, behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted means God with us. And so, yes, I don't know how we went from Emmanuel to Jesus, but the story is that Jesus' father was the angel Gabriel, mm-hmm. that he was a hybrid, mm-hmm. and that he was in touch with extraterrestrial intelligences. And basically, it's the book of Matthew with some, that he survived the crucifixion, that he went to India. It's a fascinating book. It's a fascinating book.
Michael, where do you think we are today on the paradigm shift in terms of a scale? Do we think we've progressed to a crucial point? Do you think we've made enough progression that, yes, it's great. At least we're having dialogues now. The dialogues are there. Great to be doing shows like this, Michael. However, where are we on the paradigm shift? Are we going to be progressing to the point where this is going to be productive for an outcome, productive for some sort of a benefit for mankind?
Yes, I think that, as Dr. King said, when he was quoting Victor Hugo, no lie lives forever, and all truths will be revealed. And we're looking at a time where we're finally getting this, that we are not alone in the universe, and that we can look to our scriptures, we can look to contactees, we can look to people like Dr. Edgar Mitchell, we can look to our military leaders, we can look to other people who are telling us that, listen, they're not getting anything from this. They're not getting money or anything for telling lies. They're just saying that, you know what? We are not alone. We have never been alone. And we need to get over our hubris. It also brings science and religion together. One thing about the UFO phenomenon is it brings science, of course, technology and what have you, together with spirituality. A lot of these beings are light years ahead of us, not only in technology, but in evolution, mm-hmm. in spiritual evolution. Mm-hmm. So they're not, science and spirituality are not distant cousins who rarely speak to each other. Sure. They are kin. They are very much woven together.
Wow. Sure.
And I think it's an exciting time.
Yeah, definitely, Michael. Michael, we're at the top of the hour. Please give us out your website. I know you've got a very active blog there, and you obviously, I don't know if you've got any speaking engagements this year, but I know you do the circuit of conferences, so people will be able to at least check in on your website for updates.
Okay, yes, I would like to get more. I do tons of radio and some TV stuff. I'd love to do more conferences, and that's what I'm working on. Nothing on the horizon as yet. My website is michaeljscarter.com. My email is michaeljscarter@charter.net. My books are on Amazon, and Barnes and Nobles. You can get them in Kindle. You can get them in Nook. You can get them in soft cover. I think you would be, very intrigued by what I'm saying. And, There's a lot of research there, and please feel free. You can always email me at michaeljscarter.com. I do respond. You can email me from my website, and let's keep the conversation going.
For sure. I'm not entirely sure of the source. I glanced on the internet. I didn't read it properly, but I think there was something about the Russians were calling for America to disclose.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it was an older post.
Yeah.
So it hasn't happened yet. I don't know when America's going to disclose. I mean, there's a lot of complications and stuff there, but I feel that we don't have to wait.
Yeah.
Whether they disclose or not, disclosure's going on right now. You're part of it with your guest, with the work you do. And again, you go online, Mexico, Brazil, the UK, New Zealand, France. I mean, China. All of these countries are releasing the data. It would be nice if Obama or President Clinton or President Bush, whoever's going to do it, would come out. I just don't know if it would happen right now. Because we're talking about a lot of questions. We're talking about people that lost their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
We do what Mandela did in apartheid. Do we have a truth and reconciliation kind of thing where people are pardoned?
Sure.
It's mechanisms that would have to go in place. People are going to go, how long have you...
Sure.
Why weren't you telling us this? Some people were bullied into not speaking out, and we must admit, some people were killed.
Sure. The most important aspect of it, I think. I think the point is it's not necessary, but it would be really nice. It would be definitely...
It would definitely be really
I think
nice.
And just to say we got it out of the way, just to go, okay, that's done now, it's out of the way. Continue,
Yes.
Let's progress.
Yes.
For sure.
I agree.
Michael, I really thank you for your time at the top of the hour. michaeljscarter.com. It's been wonderful speaking to you again, Michael, and hopefully we're going to meet someday over. Maybe you come on tour. Maybe you come on tour in Ireland.
Yes. It's on my bucket list.
Oh, for sure, brother. Listen, I thank you for your time, Michael. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, brother, and I look forward to the link, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Give my regard.
Bye now.
Why weren't you telling us this? Some people were bullied into not speaking out, and we must admit, some people were killed.
The most important aspect of it, I think the point is it's not necessary, but it would be really nice. It would definitely.
It would definitely be
I
really
think
nice.
and just to say we got it out of the way, just to go, okay, that's done now, it's out of the way. Continue, let's progress.
Yes.
For sure.
I agree.
Michael, I really thank you for your time at the top of the hour. michaeljscarter.com. It's been wonderful speaking to you again, Michael, and hopefully we're going to meet someday over. Maybe you come on tour in Ireland.
Yes, it's on my bucket list.
Oh, for sure, brother. Listen, I thank you for your time, Michael. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, brother, and I look forward to the link, and I appreciate it.